Yep, we've got
Uh,
it now.
we're live streaming. Good. Okay, brilliant. Okay, folks. So appreciate appreciate everybody's patience today, and all I got to do is move this bar. I think bar. That's not a pun. It's not. Right. Any news from anybody tonight? Let's see from Roger. Anything from you, Lovely?
So yet I'm still chasing up that Roman site in Whitchurch, and I've
Ah,
got
the
to visit.
details.
Yes, the I couldn't copy off the local map we had because it's covered in a sort of sealed type thing. So I'm going to go down to a library centre, archive centre, and get hold of the part of the Wayne map. It's an 1880 map, which I mentioned, and I get a section of it done at the centre, which helps with archiving and stuff. So that's the next thing to see. But all it says on the map is the Roman station. Now, there was a Roman presence there of some form, but no one's got much detail of what it is. The only thing I'm thinking is not far from the main route through Whitchurch, which might have been up to the valleys and Brecon and all the rest. Gethley Car, maybe. So whether you can add to it, but I'll get a copy to you.
Yeah, if
and see
as I
what you can
say, if
make.
you get, yeah,
It's a bit vague, I know, but it's only recently I've heard of the thing and noticed something. It was all about this Roman tower, Norman tower there and stuff, the barrow, which has since gone. And this is a new thing which I'm still asking about, but I keep checking. So when I've got a copy
it's
before long, next week I'll send it off. You can have a look.
yeah. If you can get me the details, then obviously we'll try and
Yeah.
add that to the class.
Okay.
We'll give you the details. If it's a similar good reference to one I've published in Romans in South Wales, then
Yeah.
that'll be helpful. But um, I've got new contacts now that are extreme on it. Then we'll get it. Okay. So okay, thanks for that, Rog. Roger's looking for a site in Cardiff, and in a place called Whitchurch, and it's one of those elusive places. So hopefully, I can add some light on it. Right. Okay, then. Anything else from you, Andy? Although you've done all your talking, have you?
Yeah, no, kind of done it all. Thanks. I did find a little, I was saying before, I did a little bit of field walking on the edge of a ploughed field, and where Karen's dad said he'd seen a load of terracotta. Most of
Yeah.
it was modern or sort of a couple of 100 years old roof tiles thing, but I did find what looks like a piece of Roman glass in it as well. Just a little piece.
Well, I'm your guide to look at Roman glass as well. So right. But the problem is,
I get it.
is it like a solid, hard piece of blue glass, and it's like loads of bits in it?
Yeah, it's a kind of a greeny blue color, but very pale, extremely thin, and a lot of that iridescent markings on the outside of it. I'll get it after the break. But,
Hang on, hang on. I'm getting close to what this is. So yeah, so when you say thin, is it like 2 millimeters thick?
or if that,
So the iridescence on it is the patina on the glass.
yes,
Is it curved or is it flat?
absolutely flat, which is strange. But yeah,
It sounds like it's going to be Tudor window glass,
oh, could be. Yeah,
which
it's an area
is
that looks
even
like it's
more.
been dumped, so it could be anything. So yeah.
Actually, I've got some Tudor window glass here. So hang on a minute.
It doesn't.
Oh,
It
there
doesn't
it is.
have that. Yeah,
Here
it
we
doesn't
go.
have that blue tinge that other Roman stuff have had. But it's definitely well old, whatever it is. Right.
That's Tudor window glass.
How thick is it?
It's about 2 millimeters.
Yeah, it's nowhere near as thick as
That's
that.
opaque, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this has got loads of bubbles in it, and
Oh, right.
you have a chat to some other people, and I'll go and get it now, and you can have a look at it.
oh, okay. No, so yeah, it's part of one of the sites I've been processing the artifacts from, and
That's better.
so there we go. So if I bring it close, Unfortunately, because of this backdrop, you can see that, yeah?
Well, just now it looks opaque, but when you move it, is it transparent?
Yeah, it is transparent, yeah.
It looks opaque when you...
Anyway, when I say Tudor, actually, the date for that is actually is probably the 1600s. So it's very, very, if you want to class Queen Elizabeth I as a Tudor queen, so that'd be 1604. So somewhere like that. So,
but
anyway,
what color would Roman glass be? Would they always use the same color?
It'd either be deep blue, really off blue, or a green, and those types of colors. Actually, some types of Roman glass is actually the color which is here behind me. So yeah. So if Andy, oh, here we go, Andy. What we're going to do is get you on screen, Andy. Hang on, I'm going to get you on full screen. Hang on. Right, if we get him, hang on. Right, hang on. Right, speak, Andy, and it should come up with you.
Yeah, it's this one here. It's only a tiny little piece, and that's it. But you can see if I hold it edgewise, it's very, very thin.
Yeah.
Andy, sorry, it's not Roman.
It's got a lot of the iridescent stuff. I'm trying to get it so you can see it. I was curious about it, not because it's so flat that it wasn't, but it's very, it's like 1 millimeter thick.
Has it got like air bubbles in it?
Yeah, lots.
Oh well, it's definitely Tudor or Stuart, definitely.
It could be, but it's so thin. But yeah,
I would need to see it. But Andy,
yeah, I'm not
happy if it's 400 years old, for God's sake.
Yeah. It's definitely well older than all the rest of this stuff. There were some roof tiles that look like bits of roof tiles that might be that age, but they could just as easily just be, 150 years old.
Well, actually, I've actually got a bag of field walk material, right? And within all this, there is one piece of Roman tile. And this is Roman tile. You know it's Roman tile, right? Because if you rub it on your hand goes orange.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's Roman tile. And also, it's Roman tile because it's soft enough you can bite it.
Right. They're kind of quite pale as well, those Roman ones, aren't they? So these were quite a bit darker and hard fired ones.
I used to put Roman artifacts on a table in some of my classes, right? And I one day I put a piece of Roman Samian on the table, right? And I told everybody to sort of nibble the Roman Samian to get you. So basically, because there was 10 people in the room, there was a nibble out of each of the bit of the Roman Samian. Not a good idea. But anyway, but obviously Roman tile, lots of it has got like this orange hue to it. If you rub it on your hand, that's how you know it's Roman. And if I get a bit of paper, which is this bit of paper, and I go like this, you can see. Hang on a minute. Can you see that? Hang on. There, you can see like there's an orange on it.
Yeah.
Well, you could just see it then before I went off. Right. Okay then. Now, thank you for that, Andy. If there's nothing else from you, Andy,
no, that's it, Daniel.
This technology seems to be working so far, so it's good. So, Margaret, anything from you?
Wouldn't you get the same orangey stain from a modern day house brick?
No, because as you scrape on a piece of paper, it rip it.
Okay.
Basically modern brick is fired at such a high temperature that you can cut paper with it. You can't cut paper with a piece of Roman tile usually.
Right.
So anything else from you, Margaret? Lovely.
There isn't time. You've got to get cracking.
Okay, David, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
No.
Okay, Margaret, you've subpoenaed yourself. Right. So what we need to do now is I'm still trying to go there. Right. So what we're going to do, we're going to share, and hopefully, new technology. I'm going to do the screen. Right. Start broadcasting. Right. Okay. Screen. Okay. Right. Okay. Everything on your screen will be recorded. Okay. Right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to. Okay. So it's happening. Photos. Can you see an image on the screen, Margaret?
Yes.
Right. I'm glad you can. That was actually a lot better. Actually, that worked a lot better. Good.
Why can
So
I
all
see
I'm going to do
myself
now.
twice? I can see myself twice.
Yeah, I've got a Margaret in the middle of me. Well, not in the middle of my screen, but
Yeah.
bottom right. Now it's me.
Right. Are you able to see?
Flipping heck.
Are you able to see that image?
Yeah.
I can see your sheep, yeah. And now I can see Roger's head.
My head.
Oh, right. Hang on a minute. So if I'm right, can you see
That's
anybody
just
now?
his head. That's all we can
That's
see.
it.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
Sorted it.
Clear.
You
Yeah.
can't see any. So that's my sheep giving birth.
Yep.
I thought I'd show you that. Nothing else happens for another 5 minutes, so I won't show you the rest. But that's a sheep giving birth. So I had to get my gloves. I had to make sure it's moused, and I had to put my hand up its rear end to try and feel the other leg and stuff. And by the time everything was fine, then yeah. So anyway, let's crack on. So flag fen we're doing today, and I want to know if this image is showing on your screen and there's nothing else.
Yes.
Yep.
My
Yeah.
God, it's the first time we managed to get brilliant. Excellent. Oh, good. So I've got control over anybody else on the screen. So that's good. New technology. Andy, it's working so far. Touch wood. Excellent. Where there's a disaster and a problem going wrong, right? There's always hope. And do you know what I'm going to do? Oh my God, I've just stirred my my cup of coffee with a hypodermic syringe. Never mind. It tastes good anyway. Now, this is Flag Fen Part 2. And we're doing Flag Fen Part 2 because we've already done Flag Fen Part 1. And when we did Flag Fen Part 1, hopefully it gave you enough detail to sort of understand a little bit more with the images we're looking at. So next week, what we're going to do is do Flag Fen Part 3. No more sheep will be delivered. And again, we'll profusely apologise for the delays today and the difference in technology, but it seems to be working well, so that's good. So next week it'll be like a conclusion. So when we think about flag fen in a nutshell, we think about the timbers in front of us. We might think about a sword. We might think about one of the reconstructed buildings. And I'm interested to hear that you were going down Peterborough Way. Is that right, Margaret? And I was just thinking, wait, did she say she was going Peterborough Way?
Yes.
So why aren't you going to visit Flag Fen?
I have been there already.
There's more stuff to see, including stuff from Moss Farm there. So there you go.
Well, at the Peterborough Museum, they've got things from both of them.
So the archaeology of this landscape, it's otherwise known as Fen Gate, as we established last time, has been studied in quite a lot of detail. And when we do think about Flag Fen, we forget about the Neolithic story. So to understand archaeology, as we know, we've got to sort of see the origins. So we look at the Neolithic story and beyond with Flag Fen and a peat-like landscape and all the timbers and everything, very similar to Moss Farm. And I've actually found out that the Moss Farm excavation details are actually available online in a PDF. So that's really helpful because I did actually see the price of the Flag Fen volume, not Flag Fen, Moss Farm. Start again. So when we do the Moss Farm lecture, I've managed to get hold of a link, a PDF on the Moss Farm site, which isn't too far away from Flag Fen, and it's great. So I can look at the PDF, and hopefully I'll be able to get the images off the PDF from Moss Farm. It's similar to what I'm doing today, except this is the printed version. So I don't have to fork out £200. So that'll be really helpful. But anyway, back to Flag Fen. So we think about Flag Fen and Bronze Age. We've got Neolithic shrines there. We've got Neolithic structures. We've got the ancient routeways that go from the Neolithic period into the Bronze Age, as we established last time. And then what we think about is we think then about the Copper Age. We think about 4,500 years ago. We think about the Bronze Age, 4,100 years ago, and we think about a great landscape that has inevitably, one time it's been watery, next time it's been sort of watery, land-like, boggy. It's peated up, and hence the archaeology has been preserved. There's an elaborate sort of chronology of the landscape. So what we think about is today with the landscape that we have then discovered Flag Fen. We think about ditches, we think about the wetlands, we think about how the landscape has been tamed, but we also go back to understanding what we've got on the image, where we've got those uprights, and look at that. It's absolutely beautiful image there where it sort of sticks out. We've got all the timbers. We've got the wattle framing. Absolutely great. We're there's a lot to see, which has been excavated at Flag Fen. A landscape of these walkways, a landscape of farmers, a landscape of activity. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the Flag Fen landscape. Let's look at the next image. And there it is. So what we've got, we cannot forget about King John's the Wash, right? And also when we think about this, very interesting image that where we've got the Roman coast. And the Roman coastline was more regressed from where it is today. And obviously large bits of that landscape have been reclaimed, except all the way the rest of East Anglia, for example, big chunks of East Anglia, including the likes of Hoyk, are now being eroded into the sea. Bits of that landscape, large chunks of that landscape are being lost, and bits of that landscape are being lost. Haysborough, for example, we get wonderful prehistoric archaeology there. This bit of the landscape is, we're reclaiming the sea. It's quite a strange world, East Anglia. It's quite a strange landscape. So what we think about, we can quickly go on here. We can see where Flag Fen is. We can sort of see Whittlesea Island. We can see Thorney, and what this is a large landscape that has been inevitably reclaimed. We can see the uplands here. We can see Flag Fen over here. In a cauldron, Flag Fen's in a bit of a cauldron. It's sort of surrounded by sort of Whittlesea, Thorney, Flag Fen, and so what we've got is the white areas of sort of practically been all reclaimed. I wouldn't want a house there, by the way. So what we've got, if we go to here, it's quickly showing you the silt mud flats. You can think about the likes of Cumbria, the mud flats there. You know what I'm talking about. Grange over Sands, that type of landscape. We talk about the train ended up in it earlier on. So that's the type of landscape that we're talking about, which is sort of been reclaimed. And we're starting to think about the marine silts there, and all this has been chopped up. And you're talking about Wisebeck now, where people are living there in this once muddy, bereft landscape of human occupation. And we think there that we got the peats, the alluvials, and the marls, rich agricultural land. And this rich agricultural land around Flag Fen is the landscape that they've actually been reclaiming, the landscape that people are now living. But Flag Fen is that landscape that we can clearly see on the map, and this landscape of Flag Fen is where the nuts and bolts of the archaeology are to be found today. So this is this whole world, and it's very, very odd to think that thousands of years ago, just north of Cambridge, there on the map, a few thousand years ago, is most of this was boggy, inaccessible landscape. The only way you could get across it is the walkways that we've actually excavated at Flag Fen, and the evidence that we see, which is very near, which is very near as well, with the Must Farm excavations. which we do hear a lot about. Now, by the way, Margaret, you got a challenge. If you do end up in the Peterborough Museum, you've got to take one photograph that stimulates and one photograph that tells us everything about Flag Fen and Musk Farm in one image. That's a challenge for you. Sorry to be unfair. So
I'll take two.
No, you can take one. No. It's got to be an image that shows Musk Farm and Flag Fen. That's your homework. Sorry.
But they're two different sites, so I'd have to take two.
But they're very much linked within the landscape, right? So it's a challenge. Is the Musk Farm landscape telling us about Flag Fen, or is the Flag Fen landscape telling us about Musk Farm? Or can you find one object that tells us about both sites? Sorry to be unfair, Margaret. You've got no other directions other than that. So what we've now got is a wonderful plan, thanks to Francis Pryor. And this plan itself just shows everything, right? So before we actually go there, we to get an idea, sort of, we've got the likes of Flag Fen there, and we've got a mere south of it, and what we've got Whittlesea there, and we're thinking about how this then stoops out into the next plan, and there is the next plan. Do you know what? One thing I do like is a good plan, and this is a very, very good plan. Just basically a modern ordnance survey map, and one of the things that I might do for Rog, if Rog is a very good boy, what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to creep to Rog, because of your support over the years. What I'm going to do is, when you get that image of that Roman station site with a date for the map that is off, right? I'm going to take that image and I'm going to enhance the modern landscape on that image, and that's just going to be for Roger. I might do this for everybody, but don't do this to me every week, okay? Cheers, Rog. So what we've got this wonderful plan here. So the plan of the northern part of the Flag Fen Basin, which we've just seen, and showing the location of the Fen Gate site, the Fen Gate landscape, and the Northey Field systems. Northey Field systems are the systems that we directly link with the Flag Fen platform, with the post alignments. And interesting enough, if you look there now, you can basically get an idea. You can get an idea of how the sort of landscape has very much changed, with how the later Bronze Age and the edges of this boggy landscape, this very wet landscape that they had to put this post alignment across, and we can see the sort of changes. And now most of this, you can just walk across these fields, obviously with farmers' permission. And what you have is these little walkways, and you've got these reens, and you've got these dikes. In Cornwall, they call them, not in Cornwall, Somerset, they call them reens. Dikes is what we would call here, up in, for example, Orkney, a dike is a bank rather than a ditch. There's an interesting fact for you. So when we think about this is a kilometre wide wetland, was traversed in the late Bronze Age by post alignments to sort of try and tame the landscape from the old Neolithic, which would have been very sort of wet and flooded. Now it's a landscape that's been very, very much tamed. And obviously, what very much linked with last week, we mentioned last week about, for example, farming. Field systems there. Love it. Nice bit of field systems there. And obviously, again, this is all linked together. We can't really look at an archaeological landscape without linking it all together. The Bronze Age has had an impact on the Iron Age, and the Iron Age then has an impact on the Roman era. And one big argument and one big thing is that in British archaeology, it's very, very rare that you just get something that is one period. What I'm trying to say is that, when I sort of argue and say, lots of trackways out there were originally there when they put Roman road surfaces on them, well, that makes sense. It's very rare that you get Roman road surfaces that are starting anew. There are one or two, but in the main, most of this landscape of archaeology has always got something there. This is a quote from Julie Graham in the spoof Bone Kickers, a series of archaeologists in 2008. She says there's always something underneath the surface. So let's think about this and let's try and sort of get an idea. So when we get sort of a sense and we get a draw, but this is how it looks today, right? There's a quote I've got here. It might not make much sense, but this is a quote from the 1100s, right? It's to do with the landscape. So if we can sort of go back to the original image that we've shown, we're sort of looking at this now and sort of how the landscape's working today. So if we go back to this, we can get an idea, right? And this sort of puts us into the landscape as we're looking at it. It says from the 1100s, now Peterborough is situated in the region of the Fens. Back then in the 1100s, it was known as the Gyrwas, the Gyrwas, and that very much sounds Welsh to me, the Fens. Because the same Fens begins there on the eastern side, extending for 60 miles or more. The same is very valuable to men because there are obtained in abundance all things needful for them that dwell there by the logs, and stubble for kindling, hay for the feeding of their beasts, thatch for the roofs of their houses, and many other things of use and profit. And moreover, it is very full of fish and fowl. There are divers rivers and many other waters there, and moreover great fish ponds. In all these things that district is very rich. So this Birch, i.e. Peterborough, Peterborough is St. Peterborough, is built in a fair spot and goodly. Remember, this is written in the 1100s. It could equally be written thousands of years before, because on the one side it is rich in fenland and in goodly waters with many fertile meads and pastures, and on the other it has abundance of ploughlands and woodlands with many fertile meads and pastures. On all sides it is beautiful to look upon and easy to approach on foot, save only on the eastern side where there is no coming to it save in a boat. And you're thinking about that description from the 1100s. I know most of the landscape is very different from thousands of years before, but that's a good description from the 1100s. And we think about this, and there you go, Whittlesea being the natural island. There it is on our little plan there. So let's go back to that image that we had a few moments ago. I had to get into that sort of, by the way, we'll just finish the lecture there because that was just too good. So the Fens today, usually this fen-like landscape is very much like the Low Countries of the Netherlands, Holland. And what you do find is lots of this sort of canalization, straight canals, roadways. Sort of, we're talking about sort of gates, sluices, and engine houses, to pump stations, all these other things. So in the distance, what you can see is over there on the left, there we go, that there is a steam-driven pump from the 1800s, which would have raised water from the surrounding land into the main drain. So this is very much a landscape that is ordained to change, but it was not ordained to change with the previous quote that we've got from the 1100s. And again, we look at this and we sort of get a feel. And again, we've got another little quote. We've actually got we've got two quotes now. We got, so obviously when we compare the previous quote, it talks about lots of water, it talks about lots of profit, it talks about lots of stubble for kindling, it talks about fish, fowl, thatch, it talks about ploughland, it talks about landscapes that you need to cross with water. So this landscape is very much different from what you're seeing in front of us today. And sort of that sort of bit in between, what we think about now today, if we get a feel, the flatness provides that feature of display of the vast hemisphere of sky impossible to match elsewhere in Britain, and the key to the affection the landscape generates in the hearts of resident fenmen. As one unexpected communicative explained to me, any fool can appreciate mountain scenery, but it takes a man of discernment to appreciate fens. And that was written in 1978. This sounds like a really old quote, actually, but that was written in 1978 by a chap by the name of Sir Harry Goodwin. Now, then what we do find is another quote to sort of, so what we've got is to match the previous quote, this rich, bountiful quote, no straight lines and all the rest of it. Now we've got straight lines. And when we think about the changes within the landscape today, this is what we're looking at today. So mile after mile, the flat road reeled behind them. Here a windmill, there a solitary farmhouse, there a row of poplars strung along the edge of a reed-grown dike. That's what that is. Wheat, potatoes, beet, mustard, and wheat again. A long village street with a grey and ancient church tower, a red brick chapel, and the vicarage set in a little oasis of elm and horse chestnut. And then once more dike and windmill, wheat, mustard, and grassland. And as they went, the land flattened more and more, if a flatness were possible, and the windmills become more numerous, and on the right hand the silver streak of the Whale River, W-A-L-E river, came back into view, broad and now swollen with the water of the 30-foot and of Harper's Cut and St. Simon's EAU, and winding and spreading here and there with a remembrance of its ancient leisure. Then ahead of the great circle of the horizon, a little bunch of spires and roofs and a tall tree or so, and beyond them the thin masts of shipping. And so by bridge and bridge the travellers came to Wall Beach. Once a great port, but stranded, now far inland. That's interesting. Wall Beach, now it's far inland, with the silting of the marshes and the choking of the whale outfall. And when we think again, we think about this sort of this wonderful landscape. You can clearly see where things have moved, and the landscape's been tamed, but in East Anglia it hasn't. So basically what we're talking about, the principle here is that the landscape has massively changed. And one thing I would say, we'll go to that image in a minute. One thing I would say is that this is a landscape that has been massively changed, not just more in modern times. If you look at a map of Roman Britain, what you can see across East Anglia is that Roman canals everywhere, right? Not roads, but Roman canals everywhere, where the landscape has been tamed. The landscape has been, one second, I've had the door open ever since. The landscape was tamed in the Roman era, and it became a bread basket for them. So basically, simply change has altered this landscape, and usually lots of natural human beings and stuff. The landscape has changed, and obviously the general effect of the flooding process is to fill the landscape with silts and muds. And over that period, this is where we get the fenland landscape that we can very much associate with the landscape today. So what we've interesting enough, we've got near Peterborough. This is a rather interesting image, if I can put this across. The top of this cast iron post was level with the ground around 1850. Since then, the peaty land around has shrunk due to the effects of drainage. So what's happened? Again, we'll repeat that. The top of this cast iron post was level with the ground around 1850, right? What we're really saying there is that the landscape was boggy, marshy, and the water has been drained, right? And the soil has been compacted. That's the change. And these are the changes within the landscape. Since 1850, since then, the peaty land around has shrunk due to the effects of drainage. So, in other words, what you've got, it's quite trying to get your mind around this. It's really difficult, and I'm not, I'm not, I'm not a botanist. I'm an archaeologist. But when you think about this, this is one thing we see in archaeology. Sometimes we see really big, thick layers of archaeology that you can excavate, really thin layers of archaeology that you can excavate. You've got landscapes that retract when the water's drained, so the layers get tighter and more compacted, as in peat landscapes like Star Car, and so on and so on. So that's a really interesting one that we're understanding and sort of getting a good grasp of what's going on. So when we think about this landscape, what we do think about is not just the trackways, not just the buildings, not just the agricultural landscapes from the Bronze Age and so on, but look at this. That there, guess what that is, right? That's a big piece of prehistoric bog oak, right? A large prehistoric bog oak dragged from agricultural land in Newborough Fen, north of Peterborough. Bog oaks are frequently pine trees, but this is actually oak. Now, I tell you what, a bog oak, you don't often get big chunks of bog oak like that. And it's all to do with obviously the changes of the landscape and the landscape being silted, bogged up, things moving in with water, floods, all these different things having an effect. So this huge chunk, this huge piece of timber surviving in all those peats and muds. Now, what we think about is that the excavation, the excavation with excavating within this landscape hasn't always been easy for the archaeologists. And we'll explain this image in a minute. So one thing that the archaeologists face is that they're up against a battle with drainage, and then when it's drained, it becomes agricultural land and it's ploughed, right? Within those peats that have been drained, you've got the countless waterlogged and well-preserved sites that we can't save them all. Lots of the archaeology from this fen-like landscape has been revealed to the likes of Francis Pryor, because he's wandering around and he's looking at these dikes and so on, and bits of old timber are sort of sticking out. Back in 1981, for example, with this landscape, 1981 to 1988, they actually started to realize that the archaeology that was once there and had been there for thousands of years, because of the nature of drainage, because of the nature of drying out and ploughing, has inadvertently destroyed the archaeology. And, it's just the idea, why can't we just go in there with watering cans and water the archaeology on every daily basis? And, farmers wouldn't like that because they're trying to put crops in. So this is all about change. And it's all about salvage archaeological excavation. Once peat, and that's what this is in front of us. Once peat begins to humify, the process is hard to arrest. In other words, what happens is the anaerobic conditions which seal the wood and all these other things from bacteria and so on. Once it starts to dry out, you can imagine, when we say dry out, the worms and all the critters get in there and bacterias get in there, and they start to eat away at all these different things. The microorganisms start to arrive in the peats that have been kept away, and they want to churn it and move it, Mother Nature, and it's obviously affecting the archaeology. And when we're thinking about this sort of landscape, and we're thinking about a Neolithic, we're thinking about this very rich Neolithic landscape, we can only turn to understand that the flag fen landscapes are only being dried out really bored over the past 50 odd years. And they've learned the lessons from the sweet track in Somerset. You know, that sweet track that dates back to 3,870 years BC. They've learned that when the landscape is drained, it's basically impossible to resist the damaging effects that drying out this landscape actually has on the archaeology. So what they're trying to do is to when they're excavating, they're trying to create in a way what this is showing. This is this is a plastic. They're describing that as they're excavating, they've got to protect the edges, right? And they've got to protect the edges because it's a deep trench. And if they're digging there, the trench site will collapse. And if it's going to collapse, it's going to cause a danger to the archaeology because it's very damp. But as they're excavating, they've got to create conditions that offer the ability to help the archaeologists excavate and to find the archaeology in the first place. So what they've one of the things that one of the things what they're trying to do within this landscape is that they're trying to arrest some of the bits of the landscape from complete destruction. So what they're doing, they're allowing some of it to flood, right? Bits of it are allowing to flood to offer some of the archaeology to be preserved so that it can be excavated and looked at in future generations. So this is what this is exactly looking at. Now, hopefully, the next image should hang on. I keep going to do something else. This next image, when Roger was talking about a site in Whitchurch, Cardiff, if there's any aerial photography surviving from the Luftwaffe or from the 1940s or the RAF from the 1920s or the 1940s as well, we might be able to get an image of the site that he's talking about. So we'll do a little bit more research on that, Rog. This itself is back to Flag Fen. So there's a bleak aerial photograph of crop marks, which is within the Fen Gate landscape. And you can see these are clearly crop marks. And if we zoom in on this, zoom in, crop marks can be absolutely anything. You know, these can be boundaries that could represent an enclosure, or that could represent some kind of settlement. You've got the boundaries. You might even associate that with that long line as some kind of a droveway. So obviously a process that allows these things to show in the archaeology are very complex. There are archaeologists out there. I could give it a stab, but most of those features in front of us are prehistoric features. There's nothing linear. There's nothing straight about most of them. And when we look at that, we could sort of get up here as well, and we've got more features. And the other thing as well is we can get an idea quite quickly that there are probably more heavier clays there in the upper part of the image than these sort of clays down here, sort of preserving the staining. And what it basically is, the process is a ditch has been dug, and what it is, the crops are growing higher above the ditch, within those dark alignments, and this is what shows up as those crop marks. So what we've got is that, again, if we think about this and we understand this, and what we do find is that over in A, at the top of the screen, what we can see is Bronze Age fields and drove boundary ditches. So if we go up there, that's what we can clearly see, right? I know it goes off the screen, and you've obviously got the modern landscape there. So that's sort of typical, the heavy clays I was mentioning earlier on, which are slightly different from the stuff below, right? There is a Roman feature on here, right? And we're going to show it to you. And the Roman feature is, in fact, hang on. Hang on, if I can. If you look at A, there's two parallel lines, right, which are going off in a diagonal, the side of the screen, cutting across an earlier feature. Hang on, I can see if I can't do that. Right, we've got Roger's head. Oh my god, I pressed the wrong button. And we've got Roger's head. Hang on a minute. Hang on, it's all gone wrong a minute. Hang on, it's all gone wrong. I pressed the wrong button. Oh, it's going so well a minute. Hang on. So if we go there, back to there. Oh, we got rid of Rog. Anyway, we've got the diagonal lines over with the A. You've got the straight lines there. I can't draw on this because it's new technology, but you've got those diagonal lines. That's B. That's a Roman road going off the screen. That's Causeway Roman road that goes across the flag fen sites. There's a bit of Roman feature there. And what we've then got is over in C. Interesting enough, on C, which is actually on the right hand side of the screen. Again, I wish I could draw on that. C, can you see that they're quite sort of linear, right? Those items there are known as cat's water. That's actually classed as a Roman farmyard, right? Because they're more linear than all the rest of the other stuff on the landscape. And going down to D, guess what? D, that circular feature, if we go back to D, that circular feature there is actually a Neolithic ring ditch site. So that's really, really interesting. So sort of fixing the landscape, using all these skills. So it's not just about wandering across the landscape. And I think it was really interesting that Andy mumbled about field walking earlier on, and I mumbled about field walking earlier on, the stuff you can actually find through field walking. And one of the things is that what we're thinking about finding artifacts, but we're thinking about looking at aerial photography, and this is what we've got. Now, this is an aerial photograph taken using a plane, right? But we do forget about aerial photographs taken using a hot air balloon. Did you know, for example, a really interesting fact is that the first aerial photographs were actually taken using hot air balloons in the American Civil War by the Confederacy, by the Union, over the trenches at Richmond, and I think Petersburg, up in the north as well, two Confederate sites. And this is actually a hot air balloon, and it's really interesting that in the 1860s, some of the first images that we got of trench systems and landscapes taken in hot air balloons. And again, this isn't taken in the 1860s; it's taken more recently. This is a view from a hot air balloon of a creek which is near Whittlesea, which we showed you earlier on. And what you can see there is a dark, sinuous mark. Is the final water course of the creek cutting through the silts of the levee landscape, the sort of peaty, boggy landscape. And again, that's an old water system, and it's so interesting that we've got these landscapes and like Somerset, like the Flag Fen landscape, we can get an idea. We can see it's exciting, and we've got river systems and sort of creeks, as it were, sort of creeks. And we in some of the excavations, they're finding sort of wooden artifacts in these, sort of preserved in the peats and the silts over thousands and thousands of years, whilst the rest of the landscape is being ploughed and put over to modern day agriculture. So one thing about excavating, and one thing about archaeology, and you know. When people are excavating back down to the archaeology, back to the excavations at the Flag Fen landscape, oh, wouldn't I like that Land Rover on the left? But one thing in archaeology is that they're going to excavate. But this is one thing that they used to do in Time Team, and they never used to explain this. Why are they using JCBs in Time Team? And this is called removing the overburden. So one thing that we can assume is that if you field walked in here after it's ploughed, is that the material, for example, in the top foot of the archaeology, material at the top foot of the archaeology has in fact been contaminated. So you remove that with a digger, right? And then you get down to the feet and the meters down below. And this is back in 1976 when they're actually doing this to sort of try to get an understanding of the archaeology within the landscape. Now, we'll get to the point. We'll take a little bit of a break, and when we take that break, I'm going to get Andy's image up. So you're going to have to give me a few minutes to do that. I'm going to run another coffee. I'm going to run outside, make sure the lamb's okay, and whatever. But we're doing okay so far. It's really working tonight, Andy. Oh God, I was saved by the bell. I really was. And when I want to show you this next image, and we haven't seen the man himself that has inspired us so much to really excavate and to sort of show a flag fen. And actually, Francis Pryor is actually in the new series of Time Team, which you can actually see on YouTube. And if you pay a Patreon membership, I think for a year for about 10 quid or whatever, that money goes directly into the Time Team series. And you can watch Francis Pryor live. But there he is, Francis Pryor. There's the man himself, cheeky chappy, by all accounts. And you occasionally see him wandering around the flag fen site, not as a ghost because he's still alive. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things, there are bits of waterways, the flag fen mere, the bits of the flag fen mere still with us today. And underneath all that, that's going to be left. There's, bits of archaeology going to remain forever. And there he is. And what is he doing? He's entering a sword into the water. Now, that's one that they've made. So that's Francis Pryor. He's preparing to offer a replica Bronze Age sword to the waters of the flag fen mere. This was the final scene of a Time Team film made in 1999. Later, we removed the sword to a more remote spot far out in the mere. It is still there. So obviously, you can imagine that they know where that is, so they're going to go and sort of find it and whatever. And it's just that sort of bit of experiment archaeology, and it's to sort of try to get into the archaeological minds. There's lots to be said about experimental archaeology and doing this type of thing. And actually, if you go back to that flag fen film, and when it referred to it as a film, I think it was either it was away from the series or was part of the series. I'm not sure. But this is, if you do see that, they actually make the sword. They actually make a replica Bronze Age sword in that episode. And it's so good. I can basically remember it. And Francis Pryor getting very, very excited as he does. Now, I remember showing you this image from Flag Fen Part 1, the Flag Fen Lecture Part 1. And what they've got here, that it's no longer like this at all. But this is the Flag Fen Museum, built into an old site hut, which they were going to pull down. But they basically thought, right, we're going to use this as a site site hut, and obviously it's totally changed now. This is back in 1976. Things change a lot, and obviously, if we think, let's look at let's look at the information center now. Information center part 2, because it's been rebuilt since. So that moved on from there to there. Right, so this has obviously been rebuilt since, and you can see the other building. But there it is. Look at that there. A homemade display cabinet at Flag Fen. Yeah, it's great. We need to show these things off, and the cases were changed regularly as new finds came from the excavation. Pottery comes from a large filled-in pit of the Iron Age date, actually, not from. So what goes into the Iron Age goes into, this dates to about 200 years BC. It includes some distinctive, it's called scored ware, scored, it's been scored, whose surface has been decorated with deep, irregular scored lines, which you can't actually see on any of them ones, probably made with a bundle of stiff twigs, while the clay was stiff, soft, and green. So you're going to wipe the ends of these to sort of get trailed lines into it, so it's still green before you put it into the kiln. And obviously, again, finding pottery from the Iron Age as finding pottery from the Bronze Age. Oh God, you know what? I'm really taking much of a break, have I? But that's life. That's what you pay for, guys. So the first permanent visitor centre at Flag Fen above the archaeology that they excavated, you can see a bit of the mere there as well. Today, this houses the site, and as I say, there's still water there. So they've preserved some of the water. I've said this several times. So today, this site houses the site museum and educational room. The building was constructed in mere and rests on light weight styrofoam foundations that place no extra weight on the Bronze Age timbers buried a meter or so below the lake bed. It's really interesting that they've chosen this site, and it's a site that they're able to not damage the archaeology. It's one of the things the archaeology is preserved to be shown above, which we can clearly see now. Let's not get my words tongue tied. Have we got a better image? There we go. Yeah, sorry, that's a better one. So they've constantly excavated from the 1970s into the 1990s into now, as we know. We've got time to think 1999, obviously well into now. So the excavations in the summer of 1993, and this is in the preservation hall. This is what you actually see: the stumps, the stubs, and they're what you've got there is the white is actually the plastic bags that protect the posts. They haven't been marked, and obviously what you can see there is all the bits of timber in amongst them being shown, and you can see the preservation hall regularly sprayed with water to preserve it, to keep it there longer, from the Bronze Age archaeology and the early archaeology, which is actually below all of this. And that is the damnable centre today. And I'm sure that's very familiar to good old Margaret. So the new Flag Fen Visitor Centre, funded by the Millennium Commission, opened in 2001. There it is. It is based on prehistoric round houses, and you basically got the copper roof there, which is now green. You've got a green copper, an echoing. So in some ways, they're saying they've done this circular design to sort of echo a very, very large. This would be a very, very large, very, very large, as it were, sort of prehistoric building, right? But it's obviously a modern building using modern materials. So one of the things that we did last week, and we more or less covered this when we basically said, you know, it is that, and this is Francis Pryor's own words, actually. He says that one of the greatest pleasures of archaeology is that it never stands still. And do you know what? I think Francis, I know Francis Pryor would agree with me completely on this. If you say something one week and something happens and it changes and you think, oh, actually, I'm wrong, well, this is what's changed. Archaeology is forever changing. Archaeology is forever altering how we perceive the landscape, and how we bits of evidence change everything overnight, doesn't it? And this is the thing. This is how we think and see and understand the landscape. And new things are being found all the time. Some aerial photographs from earlier times show one thing. Later aerial photography shows other things. And I'm, oh god, I've just managed to get it in this aerial photograph. It's not really showing the full thing. But sometimes they find new things in aerial photographs, and that there, you can just basically see in the corner there, you can see a little bit of a square part of a building, rectangular building. And interesting enough, they've got ditch rectangular enclosure, which is very, very unusual for the Bronze Age, which is part of this sort of large landscape. And interesting, I forgot the building there. I wish I could chalk that in. I've got to work out how to use the technology for next week. See on the left-hand side, there it is. You can see it there, just sort of see a bit of it. And they're forever finding new things within this sort of landscape. We've got a bit of a factory on the right there. Changes, archaeologists going in to sort of understand, sort of try to sort of work within the landscape. Now, within this landscape, I said that we've got Neolithic stuff, we've got Neolithic buildings, and it's so difficult to try and put in everything over into this lecture today. So hence why we've got a nice little bit of a conclusion. Yes, do that next week. So there we're going to see there you go. This is quite very clear. You can actually quite see a rectangle, sort of pseudo rectangular square building there, and this actually dates within the Neolithic period. This is a Neolithic building. What you can clearly see is that it is there. This is a bit. There you go. There you go. That hole there. This is all. This is a plan of this, and you can see ditches. You can see post holes, and the small pits or post holes within and outside the building are all associated contemporaneously with a Neolithic building. And when we think about Neolithic buildings, it's very, very odd to try and think that they're square buildings or rectangular buildings. We've already seen that in our previous lectures that there wasn't just circular buildings in the Neolithic period, Bronze Age, of square rectangular buildings. There's no real rule sometimes. Sometimes a circular building is far more easier to build and sort of work with than a square or rectangular building. So they found as well within this Neolithic, prehistoric, Bronze Age landscape, they've actually found human remains. And this is a set of human remains, a rib cage of a man aged about 35. And this is what we find is multiple burials at the site. And interesting enough, this individual, I don't know if you can actually see. I can't actually see I can't see it on the image actually, but somewhere in there there's a leaf-shaped flint arrowhead that was lodged between the 8th and the 9th ribs, which I can't exactly see, but there's an arrowhead there somewhere. But obviously finding human evidence. And one thing that we do in archaeology is that we can't excavate everything on site. So what we do, we lift it. So this is one of the this is the same, and this is one of the skeletons from the Neolithic period, and this is lifted. So what they do with this, this is 2-bit. What they've done is they've lifted this body in 2 sections, right? So what they do, they create a box, right? And they pour liquid resin around the ribs to sort of keep it all, the resin that can be removed afterwards. And then what you do, you lift this, and these are actually on display, Margaret, in the Peterborough Museum. So what they do, they excavate this they excavate this in a laboratory. So instead of being outside in the muds and sort of, you can take samples and you can get things properly. Sometimes excavating on site is really laborious, and you're not seeing the right light and so on. So when you lift the body like this, you take it into a lab and you excavate it in the lab, right? You excavate the contents in the lab. So again, moving on to another image. This image itself is of a paired. This is a droveway. So what they're doing is on the left and the right, they're cutting trenches through the ditch, right, on either side. So the droveway is in the middle. This is what you saw from the aerial photography earlier on. This is a droveway, and this is actually excavated in 1972, actually. And the longevity in the landscape, I just think it's really, really interesting. Longevity, and one thing that Francis Pryor is very much into is a sense of connecting everything within the landscape. And when he tries to connect everything in the landscape, he's basically saying this is a landscape that's been used for a very, very long time, and assume that the previous periods where people are moving around and sort of using the landscape as the same landscape is then utilized in a more farm-like landscape, within the Bronze Age. This is one thing that Francis Pryor is very much into, sort of connection and sort of linking everything together. And this is what we've got with this image. And it's well, I'll keep going. I'm okay at this minute, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. So obviously we've got the droveway there, and the way what we do with this in archaeology is that it's all about reading the layers. And behind that guy's backside, which what you can clearly see is that there are little white things in there. They're little tags, and they indicate. You can just about see those tags. They indicate the different layers, and also a little bit more clearly there, you can see that these little tags here indicate the different trenches that they're in. Although this is all linked as one ditch, they sample a trench to sort of work out the layers of sediment and how things are built up, and sort of try to date artifacts to try and date the sort of wood and the bone and so on, and all the other little bits of archaeology. So lucky to actually get human remains at Flag Ben, where in lots of other landscapes we don't, because the acids eat away at the bones and maybe eat away at the flesh. But what we do have at Flag Ben is less acidic soils in some areas where those human remains have been excavated. Obviously, they've been on more or less dry land, but obviously it's peated up and so on later on. But very, very well preserved. You can actually get an idea, again, very, very interesting to get an idea of scale. So if we go to the side of the trenches there, and you can see that it's not miles deep, is it? It's you can get an idea. You're less than a meter, and you're down to the prehistoric archaeology. There it is, and you can imagine that you got the idea. So in archaeology, this is the way we do it. So the black stuff there is the topsoil. And then you've got the grayer sort of white stuff is the subsoil, and then you get the stuff then that might be associated with the boggy, marshy mere landscapes, or you're getting down to a more solid base, which would then be a regolith and down to your bedrocks and so on. So this is sort of more a bit of a geology there, and reading the landscape and trying to understand it. I'm going to keep going to. Oh, hang on. You can still see that I've got loads of images. Oh my God, I got loads of images just to go. So I think what we might do is I might actually do this one, and we're going to do this one, and maybe this one, and then we'll have a bit of a break. You can see that there's lots to get through. Maybe, as I say, no rush. We're back next week anyway. It's a shame that the others will have missed out on this next week, and it's not really going to read the same for them. So if they got questions, let's just let them do it. So, oh yeah, this image. So what we've got is this is another site within the landscape. This was actually excavated in 1973. So what we've got, back to what Francis Pryor about this sort of linking with the landscape, everything's sort of linked, sort of reading the layers and sort of so on. What you've got here, you've got two bits of archaeology from two separate dates. So in the foreground is a ring ditch with a it's said that there's some of this has been quarried out, right? This dates to the late Neolithic going into the early Bronze Age. So we're talking about sometime sort of Copper Age, sort of roughly 4,500 years ago, somewhere like that, whatever. And then what we then have is a strange thing there. That is actually a field boundary. That's a field boundary there. Sort of rectangular thing. It's sort of field, sort of ditches, sort of field, that boundary, sort of the ditch might be sort of, you might have a little bit of a palisade, sort of some kind of stockade, garden, sort of that type of thing, sort of farmstead landscape. Remember, their tools are going to restrict the area, so it's a small sort of plowed area that is perfect for them, which actually directly cuts into this this earlier site, the circular site. It cuts into sort of this ring ditch, sort of circular site. What the ring ditch could be, it could be associated with a building, ceremonial site, whatever. But this is two sites. The circular site associated with it with with earlier remains, and the later one associated with this sort of Bronze Age landscape. Let's have a little look at the last image, last but one actually, because we've got two more to do. This itself is actually this itself is a typical find. This is a piece of Neolithic pottery, and you can get an idea of scale there. And this is a photograph taken from 1973. But what we have there is also an arrowhead. So we've got a really nice arrowhead on the left there, right? And strange sort of shaped arrowhead there. It's a single barbed arrowhead. So only one side of that is worked, right? And it's said that the way this is shaped is to catch fish or eels, and it's very distinctive. And then what we've got there is a highly decorated piece of pottery. This is known as grooved ware pottery. And clearly, sorry, where it's grooved ware pottery, it's Neolithic pottery there. And to give a bit of a scale from 1973, we've got an old shilling there shown, and basically old 5 pence piece, isn't it? An old shilling. No, it's a bit bigger than that. Sort of 2 pence piece, isn't it? If you want to equate with modern size. So what we're going to do there is we're not going to do that. We're going to do the other image a minute. Let's just have a quick look at this, and then we'll just call it. We'll break. So in a moment. So just have a little look at this other image. This is a piece of Bronze Age archaeology. Look at that there. Look at that there in the bottom of the ditch. That is not a set of human remains. That's a set of wattle lining for an actual partly waterlogged well. So this is obviously associated with the landward side of the landscape rather than a mere muddy, boggy landscape, which you've got the trackways and the walkways. This is associated with the Bronze Age, and this is a wattle lined but waterlogged well associated with the landward part of the site of the Flag Fen landscape. Do you know what? I've punished myself, haven't I, Andy? I really have. So let's take a break. So we will have precisely 15 minutes because I've got those 4 things to do, haven't I? I've got to have a cup of tea. Image, sheep, break. Yeah, that's what it is. So what we're going to do now, and if we got a bit of shenanigans trying to get us back up later on, hang on. Oh, stop share. It worked. Oh God, this is a lot more difficult than usual. So we've got to press that there. Screen broadcasting. Okay. Right. So that works, doesn't it? Okay. Right. Okay then. So let's find out if there's any questions. Andy, let's get your mic on. Pete, let's get your mic on. I think David either turned his lights off. David's turned his lights off. He's got to. Dave, are you there, Dave? God, I hope you haven't fallen asleep. I hope you haven't fallen. No, he's still there.
It's still there. Yeah.
He's still there. Dave, have you fallen asleep?
No, I haven't.
Carl?
You said you were having a break. I'm doing a break.
Carl?
Oh, right. Sorry, Dave. I was asking questions. Sorry, Dave. Any questions, David? No? Okay. Andy.
Carl? Roger. I'm going to sign off.
Oh, okay then. Okay,
it's
Rog.
interesting. I've been to
Rog.
Flag Fen like Margaret, and it's fascinating, and it's all worth looking at again as much as we can. But tonight I'm going to cut in early and see you as soon as I can. I'm not sure what next week because it was Remnant holidays, but I'll be back soon.
Okay, I'm glad you got some benefit
well
out of this.
Carl. Okay.
Roger,
Bye,
make sure you get
Bye, Rog.
See you soon, Rog.
Take care, you
No,
all.
Rog.
See you
Bye.
soon.
No,
Ta-ra.
Rog. See you soon. No.
Ta-ra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, Andy. No,
Thanks.
Rog.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Rog. It's good to see you again.
No, I haven't got any questions. Thanks.
I wish we could see more of Roger than his bald head. Right. Yeah. Margaret, anything from you, lovely?
I just remember going to Flagfen. It must be about 4 years ago, I guess, and seeing that gauge. You know, it showed the photograph of the girl standing next to the gauge, showing how high the land was back in the 1700s.
Yeah, 18 something, right? Yeah, go on, carry on.
Something. I remember seeing that, and I couldn't get my head around that at all. It was so much lower.
But if you think about it, it's quite simply, water has a lot of volume. When you drain the water, the volume changes, and therefore the landscape changes, and it gets lower. That's it.
It was just weird.
That's the analogy. That's the analogy.
But,
okay, go on.
You know, they did this survey. The English Heritage funded the surveying of these dikes. Did they employ Francis Pryor?
Oh my God, you're asking a question there.
I just wondered how he managed to get involved.
I think Francis Pryor was doing some field work, and he basically, it became his baby, and he obviously got funding. But basically, Margaret, lots of this is not straightforward. For example, I'm a fellow of the Society of Scottish Antiquaries, and in every year they give grants, right? And one thing that annoys me is that Mike Parker Pearson seems to get all these grants every year, and I'm thinking, what about other I'm not working in Scotland, but what about other archaeologists needing these grants? But if you're a big name like Mike Parker Pearson, you just get these grants chucked at you, and there was lots more money available in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and this is basically what's funding Francis Pryor's work. But obviously, you've got the Millennium Grant as well with the centre and so on, so there's money out there. But that's probably how we started. I'm just going to guess on that. I'd need to read the book on his funding, and maybe it's not in there, but that's basically that. Yeah. Right. And Peter, anything from you, lovely, before I go and see my sheep?
No, nothing from me.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna blur. No, I can't blur, can I? No. Oh, there we go. I tell you what, we'll have that bridge. Maybe that'd be even better, wouldn't it? Right. So I'm gonna again. So where are we? Oh God, it's all gone to pot now. I wish I hadn't done anything. Sometimes this technology takes so long to get used to. Right. Anyway, we will have a break now, so we'll be back at 9:30. Okay. So usual break. So I'll see you then.
No, you see.
Right. Okay. I'm just. I've managed to get Andy's image in there quick, so I'm. What I'm going to do, Andy, I'm going to put the image on. You're going to talk about it, and then yes, and then I can stir my tea, and then I'll be ready. Right. So now we've got to get back to the technology. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Think. If I press that button, if I just press the screen. If I just press the screen, it works. Right. Okay. That's right. So if I'm not nasty and gone, right. Okay. Right. So I'm going to try something else. So if I go with photos. Oh. Right. Okay. So if I go with photos. Okay. Add. Right. Are you seeing the photos?
Nope. Need to share them.
Okay. You're not seeing them yet. Okay. Learn more. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. Add. Are you seeing the image?
Yep. That's the
Yeah.
one.
Oh my God, that worked! Did you see that? I just pressed a few buttons and it come on. Oh, I'm so excited, Andy. It's working. Right, Andy. I'm just going to put milk in my doodah. You tell everybody what this is.
Yeah, it's a flint sickle, and it's in the Scunthorpe Museum. I couldn't believe it. It's about 7 inches long, and we were looking at one last week that was sort of various sort of short little blades set into an antler, and they were using that. But I'd never actually seen one that's been napped like that before. I was a bit concerned that it might be a bit brittle.
It's amazing.
Lengthwise and not anything else, but because obviously with it being flint, it will stay sharp, whereas the steel ones that you use today, you have to keep sharpening. But it's beautifully napped piece of work. It's really astonishing. I've never seen one of those before. So
It's a
I had
big
to take a
piece
picture.
of flint, isn't it? It's very,
Yeah,
very big. 7 inches, did you say?
yeah. It's about 7 inches long. I think that's a ring that's above it, so you get an idea of the size of it. So.
Yeah.
Did it give an idea how long it took to make this?
No, it just said, flint scythe. That's all it said. So.
Do you get many flint objects as big as that? Isn't that quite unusual?
No.
Actually, in the Paleolithic period, you had massive, huge pebbles of flint like this, but they weren't worked like that. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Items like this that are this long that have been napped and created like this, the answer is no. You don't get that. If you think about big bits of stone, yeah, but not this level of ornateness.
I mean, I just think even napping it, the chances of you snapping it, it's just so amazing that they managed to even do that. They had a whole selection of little arrowheads as well, with tangs on that were just I don't know how they managed to make them. They were that small and that detailed. Yeah, all kind of Neolithic, but
would that have been attached to a wooden handle?
It didn't say, but I would guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't Otherwise, your hand would get cut to shreds, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes.
But if you wore a leather gauntlet on your hand or something, it might, yeah, it might work that way. Anyway, it's a beautiful object. Andy, just quickly before we get on with the lecture, what date is this from?
Just Neolithic is all they said. They didn't make any specific date. There was very little information about it.
Funnily enough, I've got this book about Peterborough, and there's a picture of a flint sickle blade in it.
Oh, so now we know
that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as big as that one.
Do you know, I was so pleased this Punch the technology worked with us. I don't know how to move on to the next images. Oh God. Right. Okay. Fine. So we'll just crack to do what we were doing earlier on. So
and do you know what else they found in the fens? They found a polished axe from the Lake District.
Oh wow.
Well, yeah. Everybody had one of them.
I thought they were very special.
They are.
Well, Margaret, you're very special, but we don't talk about it. Right. Okay. So what we've got this image now. So
Venus.
What's that? What's that, Dave?
No, it's all right. Thank you.
Okay. So what we've got more of a plan, more back to this. Let's get back into it. So we got this sort of landscape that is being planned and looked at by archaeologists. We've got lots of artifacts. We've got lots of information. So the interesting thing as well with this is that you've got a modern landscape with the modern roads like Storey's Bar Road and so on. And underneath that, you've got the rich landscape of the Bronze Age, and you can clearly see there that you've got ditches, you've got the fen gate, Bronze Age field systems where everything's been reclaimed, and everything is now up for being an agricultural landscape. And when again we look at number 8, 9, and 10. It's saying that these join with post alignments about 50 meters to the southeast. So all this is connected again with the earlier landscape, the Neolithic landscape, the Bronze Age landscape. Again, it's the tedious area of archaeology where you're trying to link everything together to sort of get an idea of sort of that link. And again, what we're going to do is just move on to what they've done associated with the flag fen landscape, the reconstructed landscape. What they have done is they have reconstructed part of the droveway at Flag Fen, and on the left you've got one of the turf roofed roundhouses behind the hedge. So what they've tried to really sort of, you can see there that you've got a ditch. And obviously beyond those people on the right hand side, you've got another bit of a ditch. So they've done their best to try and reconstruct the landscape. And you're thinking about the droveway, you've got a ditch either side. And this is one of the things when you've got sheep and cattle, you don't really need a bank. You don't really need stakes and fence line. If they've got a ditch either side, they're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to go in the ditch, I gotta keep going. So it's just simple droveway. It'd been obviously cutting into the muds, they'd have to dug that, but that's what the droveway, that's what they're trying to show with the droveway and that sort of sense of landscape. Now, one thing that I've mentioned a lot over these years, living in a building that I've constructed, a roundhouse, which we just call a house now because it's a house with insulated walls. It's got a roof. It's got double glazed windows, so it's not anything like this. But the principal design is there, so I know how to build something like this. And actually, my house is actually not too far off this design. except it's on stilts. So this is a reconstruction of a Bronze Age roundhouse at the wonderful Flag Fen, and the wattles have been woven around the wall posts to tie them securely together before taking the weight of the roof rafters, which are here upside down and leaning against the internal support ring beams. And this is one thing that you're doing when you're reconstructing a building like this. There's two concentric circles of upright timbers, and this is what we're talking about now. I tell you what, right? I had an order for 30 hurdles in Sussex. This was about 8 years ago, and I drove down in Vauxhall Astra and I had these 8 hurdles in the car. No idea how I managed to get them in, but I did, right? And they were about this size, all of them. And I tell you what, the amount of, nobody gets an idea, the amount of material that goes into making these hurdles is astronomical. You've got to get a lot of material, coppice material. And when I'm looking at this, and I'm actually thinking, oh God, I'm actually thinking that this is a lot of material. This is a lot of straight material. This is a lot of grown material. Now, these people must have thought ahead, because you naturally, you're not going to get lots of coppice sort of sticks growing up in the air. They go off on a bend, to all the rest of it, right? So to coppice, obviously, you're getting a hazel, or you might lay the hazel down. You might sort of cut it a little bit. You might lay it sort of vertically or horizontally, I might mean, or you might just cut all the bits of material off the hazel, have one shaft, and then branches grow off on the left and the right and all over the bloody shop, right? But the fact of the matter is, this material has been grown by human beings. It's been harvested. They knew they were going to build these structures. It's like coppice, it's a regular thing that they're going to do, right? So this is not accidental, right? None of this material is accidental, right? The equivalent today is going down to B&Q and just buying all your timbers to build something like this, right? Obviously, it's all been cut and whatever and hewn, but this itself is a building that uses a hell of a lot of material. So the framework of the roof had to be very strong to take the weight of the turf. The completed house we will see in a short while, but this is something that people actually take for granted, really. They think this is easy. It's not. But I will tell you one thing, right? One thing I've learned about building buildings like this: if you've got it all stockpiled, and you've got somebody like me who's built something like this, and you've got somebody like Andy who wants to learn, right? You could probably build something like this in a week if you've got the weather. Except there's one problem. Margaret, can you just go over there and sort of start mixing the daub, the clay, and the daub is made out of animal dung, and you've got to have massive vats of this, and then you've got to daub the outside of this. So that takes a lot more time. So you could probably build something like this in a week if you had everything ready. If you're cutting it all and having to go to B&Q and having deliveries and waiting, it takes a long time. So moving on again, it'd be really interesting again to sort of connect with more of this information next week and sort of fill the picture and to try and complete a little bit the picture with Flag Fen's never going to be complete. So sheepies, again, I like my sheeps. This is a Soye ewe from the island of Soye out near Kildare and near but the island of Borray as well. So there's an island group up there, and these were isolated on the island, and the Soyes were brought to the mainland, like my Borrays were brought to the mainland as well. And these are the most primitive breeds of sheep, related to the dun-faced sheep of which once existed in Scotland. They're very sort of agile, that they can get up all sorts of things, that they don't half run. I tell you what, a little baby borere, right? I can't catch them. They just run across the field. They're ready. They're up for it. So this itself survived in these Western Islands, and these have now become fashionable. People like me with their boreres, again, they're really stocky animals. You can see how they were ideal for prehistoric people. Closely similar sheep would have grazed the pastures around Flag Fen around 6,000 years ago. Now, what else have we got? We got piggies. And what we know that these animals are out there because of the horn that they're finding on the archaeological site. Back to that, the horn they're finding in our archaeological site. We're obviously got the bones and all these other things. Now, so you can, and also one thing as well is you need skins on top of the purlins for the roof here. You need skins. You need to stretch the skins, right? And then you place turfs on top of this. It's not a thatched roof, right? So be very wary of that. It's not a thatched roof. So the smoke is going to sort of collect and sort of create a sort of hover level. So let's go to our piggies. So there's a piggy. This is an Iron Age piggy, a sow, an Elvis sow. This what you're basically thinking of is this is a domesticated wild boar. To actually go back and to create something like this, as they've done with this, they've taken a wild boar and a Tamworth and they've mixed them together, and this is probably what these Iron Age beasts once looked like. So you've got a shorter snout, was bred into pigs from the 1700s, and obviously this is what we get today. This is what they're using at Flag Fen, and they've got examples of these at Peter Reynolds' Butser project as well. So again, let's look at the little piglets. And what we've got is the little piglets, sow suckles, little piglets, and you can actually on the piglets you've actually got stripes, which would probably be looking at some of the original colorant of these beasts back in the day. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the preservation hall. We're going to look at one or two reconstructed images. We're going to look at a few swords and daggers, and then we're going to call it a day, and we're going to do the sort of Bronze Age. We're going to do the other artifacts for next week. So I know I've shown you this next image before. This is the preservation hall shortly after its official opening in 1995. Obviously, you've got the new building there, 2001. Sprinkler system is seen in operation at this stage. The wood was kept below water. Unfortunately, this led to the deposition of a brown iron and manganese-rich silty sludge. And so obviously that's all changed now. So what they do there, they've changed it. They sort of spray it with water. There's a bit of a spray, but it's slightly different now. And if we look at the next image, this is that next image. And this is today, the water table within the preservation order is maintained just below the highest horizon timbers. And the large posts running diagonally across the center, and you can actually see that. So you've got big timbers, you've got small timbers, and it's great you can actually see this. I often wonder, I know, being an archaeologist, pragmatist, and our friend Francis Pryor being a pragmatist, he knows that this is not going to last forever, right? But it is to give people an idea of what this landscape, what the archaeology looks like, and how this is all about. And again, what you can see there in the background, you've got the metal shuttering there, right? And that sort of keeps this as an integral piece of archaeology. And as we've read earlier on, there's lots of archaeology below the surface, which is okay and still relatively well preserved. Now, interestingly enough, this is a very interesting image. This is an image by an artist called Rob Fuller, and this shows the alignment of these posts with some of the timbers lying horizontally on it. So you've got the verticals and you've got the horizontal timbers. So basically, I think Rob Fuller, what he wanted to do was to basically show this a watercolor showing this as the platform that went across this landscape as some of it started to bog up and all the rest of it. And basically, this is sort of the end of this as it still starts to decay and ends up in the muds and this sort of landscape that we've got there. And again, what we've got, if you can remember back not so long ago, we actually showed you, and sometimes when we got black and white images, it doesn't. I've got to go back because I'm not really sure of the technology there. That there, we're going to see this as a color image, and but by the way, my Nikki sheep, I saw her earlier on. She was looking very happy with a little baby. So the next thing I've got to do, folks, is after this tonight, I'm going to go down and I'm going to get her some fresh straw for the baby to sleep in. So anyway, back to this. So what we've got this here showing nicely a late Bronze Age water-lined well. This is the one that we've seen earlier on. You've got a bit of a scale there, 10 centimeter scale. And the shore plank may have acted as a step. These wells were usually about 1.5 meters deep and were dug down to the groundwater level, otherwise known as the water level, being the sock of the water level. And what you can clearly see there is that what they've done, they've dug the ditch, they dug the well pit, which is 1.5 meters deep, and then they've lined it. Right, they've lined it with the wattle, and you can see the bar across there, maybe, or a resting piece or something. But this is obviously to draw water into the site. And obviously, this is a dry landy site, and they're drawing the water, and obviously, you've got fresh water where they need it. And when you think about their lives and their lifestyle, it's very, you know, they're very good at keeping themselves with water throughout the Bronze Age. Very different landscape than it is today, but wanted to show you that, and obviously the wattle around the edge as well. Now this image as well is another one of the droveways, and again the sectioning of this. You've got the sections of this, the sections of the droveway. Parallel ditches or droveways belonging to the Bronze Age field system at Fengate. And this is looking in an easterly direction. That makes it is towards, it's associated with the sort of landscape that they need to sort of get the animals within the land that they need to graze. And one second. What we've got in the distance, what we've got behind, there we go, is that there is all the spoil that they've taken from the site. That sort of heads there. So the archaeologist has created a very temporary landscape feature, and obviously that's backfilled over the archaeology after it's been recorded and sectioned as it is. That actually dates from 1976, and in the background now is actually a power station. And these three sets of ditches are excavated, and there's dark soil in these ditches. And what we have another ditch which is running through the section of it, which is probably, I don't know, earlier or later. And so you know, what we've got is a sense of a Bronze Age landscape that is being recreated, re-enhanced, the droveway being very important to move animals around the landscape, obviously all linked in with the flag fen walkways. Reason why today we haven't looked much at the flag fen walkways is we did that in the last lecture. Wanted to look more at the landward sites that we've been doing, but there'll be a little bit more about the wooden stuff on site next week. Sounding very crude. And if we think about if we think again, and we think about what's in preservation, and if I can put this across, so we're thinking about that. It's very relatively flat, and you've got the ditches there, right? But occasionally with some of these droveways, what you've got is slight little banks as well. You've got some kind of banking material from these ditches as well. Instead of just being, the animals afraid they're falling in a ditch, you've got some of it. You've got little bankings as well. So normally such banks, this archaeology is usually lost in archaeology, usually ploughed out and sort of dispersed across the field, but sort of low bank that would be sort of ideal from the ditch. And obviously what you've got the white labels indicate the layers of the Bronze Age bank. Only slight banking, that's all that's needed. Animals, unless you panic them, they won't go into the ditch and they won't go above this sort of really shallow bank. They won't do it. Right? If you just sort of follow them and say, go on, follow me. Go, just go up there. Come on, drove them along. Right? They'll just keep going in a straight line because they just follow. Sheep are very highly intelligent animals. So are pigs. So are cattle. But they will have a tendency to follow the one in front. So if the one in front knows where it's going, it's not going to go in the ditch and sort of over the shallow bank. You can see it's quite a shallow bank actually. So next image. So what we've got is, look at the scale of that. That is actually a house. That's the remains of a house again. And what we've got a reconstruction of a house based on this. So the archaeological evidence, loving that archaeological evidence, and it's really nice scale. So I'm thinking that we got a scale for this. Oh God, hang on a minute. That looks, I can't really work that out. Is that 10 meters across? Anyway, so the archaeological evidence there, and what we've got is we've got the post holes there. That's going to support the heavy roof, as we saw with the image earlier on. So you've got the post holes within, right? They're going to support the main timber, and you've got this sort of what's described as a sinuous gully around the outside, right? So that sinuous gully itself is going to be the gutter, or which goes around the house to sort of the rain naturally creates this gutter. Just inside that, you're going to have the alignment, which isn't shown there because it's eroded away. It's gone. You're going to have the alignment, of the wattle daub framing. So you've got the wattle daub framing on the outside. You've got these post holes supporting the heavy timbers on the roof. And we're going to look at a Bronze Age reconstruction of a roof. So, complete Bronze Age reconstruction. Look at that there. So the reconstructed turf roof Bronze Age roundhouse. That's it, completed in 1989. Interesting enough, my notes say that was completed in July 1989 after a wet spring and early summer. So is that going to happen now? Don't think so. But anyway, so there's a bit of reconstruction there, and it's great that they're actually using turf. Turf is a really is a material that's absolutely perfect for these types of structures. It really, really is. It's heavy. It's not going to get blown off by the wind. Maybe I'd argue that the doorway should be a little bit lower than that to stop the wind, sort of, and everything. And maybe what you've got there is you've got a line of smoke sort of hovering above that doorway level, whatever level you put it. And what they haven't done here is the next illustration, right? Is they put the daub on the outside. That's there's Margaret. They're sitting on a bench tending the pigs, right? And Margaret's just nicely completed the daub on the outside of the wattle framework. And what I've got with my roof here, I've chucked on flowers and flower seeds. So we have foxglove, and we have various other sort of daisies, all sorts of things growing on our roof, right? If it's a dry summer, we're not going to have much growing on there at all. And then finally, nearly finally. Let's just not too far away from the end now. Oh, hang on. there we go. We got another set of human remains. Again, a skeleton of a young woman, a Bronze Age young woman dating to roughly in her early 20s. Her body was placed in a shallow grave at the bottom of a field boundary ditch, close to the main driveway, which led to the post alignment. Maybe at that stage, a body was placed in the field boundary ditch. Maybe the ditch was silting up a little bit. A place to put somebody like this. She's obviously been placed in a crouched position. She's obviously loved, but she's been placed in a ditch, and maybe their family wanted to think, this is where our daughter lived, our sister lived, and that's why she's in the ditch. So she wasn't, but she's in a really good state of preservation, so animals didn't get to her at all. So what we need is now we're obviously in the Bronze Age. Bronze Age, you've got the tools, the splitters. What you've got the splitters need to split these planks, and you can clearly see there. Look at that there. They're putting these little wedges in, gradually putting the wedges in so you can get plank in. Beautiful that. They are best made using quality straight grained oak. Now, have the oak trees been grown over a long period of time? The only way to get really straight oak trees is from a proper, really well-established woodland. Now, those two questions. Anyway, so it's going to be, so obviously that's an indication there's lots of wood around. So we've got evidence of this being found on the site. So you can see that this view shows how the splitting is done from the end grain using seasoned oak wedges to split green oak wood, ready for planking, ready for whatever you want to use it for, maybe the walkways and so on. But we get this planking in one of the images coming up very shortly, and what we're going to do there, and maybe what we will do, the last two images are basically saying that's what we're going to do next week, but we've got this image and one image, and then we'll call it a day. So what we've got a layer here, coarse sand and fine gravel from a walkway surface, as a walkway surface. And what you've got is they're marking where all the pottery is. You've got lots going on there. You've got charcoal, you've got pottery evidence. You've got, they're saying that this material was then spread associated with the walkway. People sometimes do that today. This is what's going on in the past. So obviously they're building up the walkways on the land. And when we talk about planking, there you've got planking there. Again, a general view of the highest level of timbers to one side of the post alignment in the main area of the excavation. So this is what they're showing. This is what you're able to see. Obviously a bit of decay with them now, but you can clearly see that these are associated with the alignments and the amount of effort that went into these alignments to get across this boggy, marshy, wet landscape. Amazing that. And then what we can do, we'll start off with this next week. Selection of objects from Flag Fen. Nice bit of a pot there. And what we've got, shale bracelets there, and got a bit of a dagger. We'll start with this next week. And then finally, this is something that obviously Francis would love me to tell you about. And what we've got is some of the objects that some have been wantonly broken. These being placed in the muds and the silts in the waters back in the day. Hence why we come back to the initial image, one of the initial images with Francis Pryor putting a sword into the Flag Fen landscape. And what we are going to do, we're going to call that a day. That's a nice place to finish. And hopefully I've made up for that tonight. And really appreciate you keeping on for me to... we weren't too far out anyway. So more about that next week. And hopefully we've got something else to look forward to next week. So that's that. So we'll call that a day. So right. It's quite weird tonight because we've got less numbers. But right, okay. So Peter, oh no, Dave, anything you want to say, Dave?
No, thank you very much. Very interesting.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, David.
Right, David.
No,
Right, David.
Bye, David.
Keep an eye on that train line. Bye. Bye-bye. I'm sure David will tell us more next week. So technology, Andy, is it better than usual, or is not as good?
I think when you get the hang of being able to draw on it, some of those things weren't quite so clear in the plan drawing of the site that you were referring to in the first half. That would be helpful, but yeah, it's okay. What we're getting though is we're only getting like I don't know whether you are able to do anything about this or not, but we're on my screen, I'm only getting about a quarter of the screen is picture, and it would be great if it could be a lot bigger. So.
On my screen, our heads are cut off.
Right. Was that in the lecture? Was that in the images?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So when we actually had the screen that we were just had the images, I wasn't sure. There was no images of you on the screen, but there was images on the screen. Was there?
I had because I was co-hosting, I had the tab on the side, but it was still in a big black border. It was still only centrally and small. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, obviously,
I didn't try clicking on it myself to see if it went any bigger, but I have got the whole Zoom meeting full screen. But
okay. Obviously, something to be aware of. I'll try and fiddle about with it tomorrow. Any questions, Andy?
No, but good pictures and very clear pictures as well. So thanks. No, I mean Flag Fen is fascinating, and Moss Farm. There's just so much coming out of it. But
so, I'm really looking forward to Moss Farm. It's going to be a bank breaker. I don't think I'm going to do that in a day, but I think probably the Flag Fen is something that people are more familiar with. I could do so much more with it. I'll do more next week, but obviously it's not going to be the full thing next week. So, but it all of these things seem to link together and lead it on to Moss Farm. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
By the way, Andy, I'll say it again. We love your jumper. Margaret wants one.
It's my submariner's jumper.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the only one I've got now, so you'll have to get used to it.
Fair enough. Margaret.
I'm just wondering about the landscape 3,000 years ago around there. I presume it would have been fenland back then because they built the houses on stilts. So where did they get the oak from?
Well, lots of these houses I'm building my house on stilts. They're building their houses on the Whittlesea Island. They're building their houses on the upland areas, right? That's where they're building their houses. And obviously, you've got the agricultural landscape as the landscape is being sort of regressed by the muds and all the rest of it. Is silted up. Then obviously the building lines and the occupation lines are moving further into the fen-like landscape. So it's very different today than it was back then. But you can get a glimpse when you go to Flag Fen with the water courses and stuff. Just squint your eyes and you can get sort of an idea. But it's completely different. I'm just going to take a punt. 90% of the water landscape of Flag Fen is now gone. So you've got basically there's pools and little ditches and stuff. There's still bits of it, but not much.
Have they got pumps there to keep the water, to stop it getting waterlogged again?
Oh yeah, definitely. You got the pumps and all the rest of it, a bit like the lowlands. But what's happening is that you've obviously got the water companies. I didn't say it, but there was one mention of it's not Wessex Water, whatever the water company that operates there. They're obviously the water is going in the water that they're getting there is going into the water supply. So they got pump stations.
Oh, right.
So instead of flooding whole valleys in Wales to give water supplies for people in Staffordshire and Liverpool and wiping out whole Welsh populations to create dams and stuff, they do something more effective in the east, of England, water that's surplus, they don't pump it out to the sea, they put it into the water supply, right? Which makes a lot of sense. I got very nationalistic then, I'm sorry. Don't worry, you're not to blame in Cumbria. You don't have any of our water. Mind you, what I always used to notice when I used to go in booths, they always used to have Welsh spring water from the Brecon Beacons. So whenever I used to go to the Brecon Beacons or South Wales, I used to get Cumbrian water. It was a bit weird.
Oh, well, you want Cumbrian willow water, which has special qualities.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
It does. They discovered it from a spring, a natural spring, and the cows that were in that field were particularly healthy and produced very, very good milk. So now they've tapped this source of water called willow water, and it's full of minerals. It's very good for you.
So they're very virile. Don't tell people that. You're not getting mixed up with a Only Fools and Horses episode where Trigger dumps a load of paint in a lake. That was good. That was.
Yeah, it was.
That was good. Talking about Trigger, Pete looks a bit like Trigger in a way. Go on, Pete.
No, it's all fine. Enjoyed it. So as a boy, we only had well water. We didn't have laid on water from a tap. We only had the well, which we had to pump the water out of.
And the big question is, Pete, right? Was your line? Was your well lined? What was it lined?
Well, with stones, yes.
Oh, right.
Bits of granite.
Bits of granite. Good old granite. Good old granite.
Oh, we were on a granite. It was granite all around us. You know, there was granite quarried all around us. So yeah, the stones were bits of granite.
So two questions. It was a natural aquifer, yeah.
Well,
natural spring water.
It was natural, yes.
Yeah. So the biggest question is, right? Where did you all go to the loo? Serious.
We had a cesspit.
Hopefully not in the well.
No, we had a cesspit out the back, and that was about 30 yards away from the well.
Mm.
I got to ask, was that uphill or downhill? I like these details. I'm serious. I'm serious. In London, in London, there's these horrible reports of your groundwater flooding into your well, and people not realizing that the cloudy yellow stuff going into the water system is your own.
No, every 2 years they would actually empty the cesspit out into the field behind us, where the cattle grazed.
And do you know what? Do you know what? Right, I can remember them doing that when I was a child. Why don't they put human waste on fields today? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, so right, okay. Well, I've got to go outside now to it's in the pouring rain. I am so sick to back teeth of this weather. It's muddy. I'm going through clothing like nobody's business. Right, so I'm going to go outside now after I've had a cup of tea, and I'm going to Andy. By the way, right, Andy, for my 50th birthday next year, right, which you're the only person I'm telling, Andy, right? You can get me a sheep's crook. Okay, good.
Shepherd's crook.
Shepherd's crook. Yeah, that's what you can get me. A shepherd's crook. I want one of those. You can get me a shepherd's crook. Anything else anyone wants to say before we finish?
No,
that's fine. Good night, all.
Okay, we'll call it a day then. So I'm going to say anyway. Thanks very much, Peter, Margaret, and Andy. If there's nothing else, I will see you tomorrow, Peter, and I'll see you next week, guys. Take care. Thank you very much.
Hi all. Thanks, Carl.
No, Margaret. No, Andy. Thanks for that, Andy. I managed it. Anyway, don't forget anyone to like and subscribe. Obviously, we've got new technology today. I have no idea how it bloody works. And what a night to start new technology. when I got sheep being delivered. I got a funny feeling that I've got another sheep that's delivered in the pouring rain, so I'm going to go out to it. I'm just going to try and end this now. Okay, I'm going to try and end this. Oh God, I don't. I got to get off. Okay, get off. No, okay. Now my cup of tea, but I can't get to it because I can't get this thing off. Okay, right, here we go. Let's see if I can get this off now. Sorry, guys. Right, okay, I'm going to finish now. I'm just going to look in the chat box. Nothing in the chat box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nothing in the chat box. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Gwelwch chi eto ymor o hyd. Diolch yn fawr. Bye, bye. Oh, I was just about to finish then. I can't. Oh, no. Right, no. Oh, God, I can't get this off.